So, topic for what we are going to indulge into is idea generation and prototyping. I guess that you guys are already gone through the first two parts of design thinking that Roshni and Abhishek are already taken. So I'll little brief about me as an trainer. So I am Shayantan Mukherjee, innovation coach and mentor. So I was with Mahindra as the innovation manager there. Almost 4 years I had been doing that, and before that 4 years I was involved as the R&D engineer. I was developing seat belts, airbags, the safety cage in that way for the vehicle TUV300. Many of you may be knowing that. And don't worry much about the word trees if you don't know about it. It's just an innovation methodology. And I completed the level 2 certification for that. That's why it's a level 2 practitioner, we call it. I mentor students and startups. Mainly I am consulting with startups from the Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Pune. So they have a hub for startups. I do that. And also I am right now, I left my job at Mahindra. So I independently started my own coaching, and I'm a consultant with the Mahindras now on various different projects. So this is what we are discussing, right? And by now I think that you know this 5 stages, and here I actually need some people to volunteer and come forward and tell me, just to give an idea about what you understand, what are the 5 stages. Anybody wants to volunteer, just you can give a thumbs up and you can unmute yourself. You guys have been there in the first session, right? Nobody remembers the 5 stages? Okay,
Shantan
I can
Prashant
hear.
side.
Yes, Prashant.
Yeah, so as per the last session that we had, there are the 5 stages of design thinking. The first
Mhm,
one is empathize.
mhm.
The second one was define the thing. The third one was ideation. Then the prototyping, and then the final testing and validation. So we went through the first 2 stages in the first session, and now we
Okay.
are looking forward for the ideation and the prototype stage.
Okay, great. So everybody understands that, right? Everybody has that basic idea about basics of design thinking, the 5 stages. That's it, right? That's a tool that everybody realizes, right? And I think that one thing has been spoken to you about is that design thinking is definitely not a tool where you just apply this 5 stages. The reason why I asked this question to you guys to understand that whether what you believe about it. Like if you know design thinking, you mean you know the 5 stages, so you are ready to innovate, right? Is this the thing, or there is something else that adds to be a design thinker?
Okay, so design think. Hello. Yeah, I'm Isha Jain. I
Yeah, Isha.
yeah yeah. So I don't. The five stages are just like something to tell us, like a baseline of it, but it is more of interconnection and more of our thought process and everything. So those five stages are not merely those five stages. There is much more to it.
Yes. So in fact, if you see, Isha, that whenever we are talking about any innovation methodologies, if you see design thinking as a innovation methodology that has been there for quite some time, and most of the organizations, they have been training their people on this, right? So what's wrong? Why are people not able to come up with new innovative ideas now that everybody knows about design thinking? Should not be a problem, right? But there is a gap, and that's what something that we will be covering today on. That innovation design thinking is not only an innovation methodology, rather it's not an innovation methodology at all. It's a mindset. It's something that you actually build upon, right? So now that we are in this ideation stage, I believe that we are done with deciding a problem, right? We all agree that we have a problem to work on. I'll suppose that at least 90% of you have a problem in your mind after you have gone through the first session, where you have gone through the first 2 stages. You have a problem in mind that this is something that I'm going to work on, right? Uh, just you can type, say that yes, I am ready, and then we can move on. Anything that, yes, I can see a thumbs up from Isha. Similarly, if you guys can respond a bit. Yes, great. So I can get a few yes here. Now let's move on and let's deep dive into the next few sessions. Here we are in ideation. Where is the process of ideate comes? It's in between these two parts, right? Empathize, define, done. We are in ideate. I will require your guidance again on the next one. I have put some color coding. Now I will require you to tell me what you understand. What this color coding signifies?
That they are interrelated.
They are interconnected with each other.
Yes. How? Definitely
Because
they are interconnected.
We come up with an idea. We try the prototype. If it works good enough, if it doesn't, then we again ideate, and this process goes on and goes on unless we are able to find a solution that will be clearly giving us a solution for a problem that we have stated.
Okay. So, Isha was also telling something. So, Isha, do you want to add something on this?
Yeah, I was just saying that that something with empathize and define. So till you don't empathize, you won't be able to define properly. And even if you define, you can't move ahead till you don't empathize. So it's like you can't move. It is interdependent in the sense that if you can't make a prototype without an idea, and if you have an idea, you can't go to validate it till you don't prototype.
Okay, there, you can see that there are distinctly two colors. One is blue, one is orange, right? And there are 3 boxes under blue, 2 boxes under orange. Okay, I'll give you another clue. Okay, and then I'll ask this question once more.
I think I understood. It's with the customers. So the blue ones are with the customers, and the other ones is what you have to do.
Let's see. Okay, now there is clue 2. And this is not made by me. There's a cursive given. This is by 99 Designs, not by Shantanu Mukherjee. Again, I go back. Now, tell me. If you want me, I can go back again to show you the previous slide. But if you can figure out now.
Perhaps it's got something to do with using the left brain and the right brain.
Very, very close. And this is absolutely right. See, one thing that we often make a mistake upon is we feel people who are intelligent are creative too. And more than often we use these two things together. He is intelligent means he is creative, not necessarily. The blue boxes signifies where we need to be these things: calm, trustworthy, and intelligent. Orange box, on the other hand, requires us to be creative, be youthful, and enthusiastic. Here, the whole design thinking phase also is broken into these two parts. When you are empathizing, you need to be trustworthy enough. You need to be able to be with your user, understand them, be intelligent to get the insights out of the stories they have spoken about, which is analysis. That is where you form the formulation of the problem statement happens. And then you move on to the stage, which is you can do it at your place. You don't need to go and meet people for that. Ideation and prototyping is about your creativity, how well you can articulate the words that are there inside your brain, right? So this orange box is all about your way of coming out of with new things, whereas the blue box is all about intelligence, being trustworthy, and empathizing, right? So this is something that I have been, many people ask this question that, okay, fine, we do design thinking. This is a very popular innovation methodology right now. Everybody talks about it, but what's great about it? Why do I need design thinking when there were other innovation methodologies already existing? And again, I will require some volunteer to tell me what they believe about this. Why do we require design thinking? The last few years, design thinking has been like, it has come up a lot, but there were innovation methodologies. A lot of them were there already, right? Why design thinking has suddenly become so popular? Why design thinking has become so effective? I think Sachin is talking. Yeah, Sachin.
Yeah. So though conventional methods are present, they do take significant amount, considering right from gathering customer requirement to win market. And sometimes like the thing may happen that considering that amount of timeline, at the end of the time when you are going to launch your product, the market would be altogether different. So design thinking is something like we can bring rapidly product into the market, and at the same time we can ask for feedback from customer and again implement those. So this is kind of cyclic process where we can have a best reliable product in the market in the short period of time, with having means considering all customer requirements.
Absolutely agree with you, Sachin. But just if I ask you that what in design thinking makes this happen, makes this possible, what will be your short and crisp answer that this in design thinking makes this possible?
The empathizing part makes it more user
Absolutely.
friendly.
Absolutely. If you see the basic difference between design thinking and any innovation methodology, mainly has been the two things. So one is empathizing, which is a lot of customer interaction, which we were missing for a. I mean, it's a missing thing in any R&D centers mostly. There are many people I know over here who are working in uh, well-known R&D organizations, and I am pretty much sure that maybe once in a lifetime they have met with the customer and actually gathered some details. So I had been there, so I know. I never met a customer while I was doing that work. So now this is the biggest problem that any innovation methodologies we had till date. A lot of methodologies are tools. Tool is different, and design thinking in that way is completely different, again iterating to the fact that it's a mindset. And now let's see how you can build this mindset over a period of time. And truly, is it possible that on a daily basis somebody can practice being a design thinker? If you can practice being a design thinker, for sure you can come up with brilliant products, and you don't have a doubt that the customer will be loving it. So what makes it this? Let's have a look at the next slide. These are the 5 things innovators do, and this is not something that I am telling. This is something that has extensive research has been done on this. And if you know Professor Clayton Christensen, he is the the god of innovation, the guy who coined the term disruption. People in the innovation fraternity, they just like respect him like anything. These are the 5 things that he and his team could find as traits of an innovator. You should go ahead and read this article in details called The Innovator's DNA if you are somebody who wants to be an innovator. And the 5 things are: an innovator should be good in networking. Point number 2 is an innovator should be good in questioning. Third is should be good in observing. Fourth is an innovator should be good in associating. And the fifth is somebody who can experiment a lot or does a lot of experimentations. So can anybody, you are seeing the different pictures I have put, right? You can see the under associates, I have a picture. Anybody can gaze and tell me what this is about?
Like the ahead of the train is inspired by this.
Yeah,
lower
anybody
the
knows
front
about
one.
this story? Yeah, you know the story, Isha?
No, I don't know the story.
Fine, no worries. I'll just
30 years ago, Japan's famous bullet train had a problem. When it traveled through tunnels, it made a loud boom. It was disturbing to wildlife, passengers, and people who lived nearby. So why was it happening? Air was building in front of the train as it entered a tunnel. The compressed air created a sound wave, and as this left the tunnel, boom! A sound like a gunshot came out. This air was also slowing the train down, like wading through. The kingfisher bird's long, sharp, pointed bill is perfectly shaped for plunging into water. Long, narrow, and streamlined, it steadily increases in diameter from the tip to the head. This reduces the impact when the bird hits the water. It slides in, the water flowing past the beak rather than being pushed in front of it. Exactly what the bullet train was failing to do. The train team studied the beak, which resembled 2 triangles with rounded edges, together forming a squashed diamond shape. And so a kingfisher's bill helped them design the train nose. When it was tested, the Kingfisher bullet train was faster, quieter, and more powerful, with 30% less air resistance than before.
So you could get right that how they actually borrowed an idea which is available in the nature, and they just used it for them their own innovation, right? And that's exactly what an innovator does. How many of you know Arvind Eye Care? I can see Pankuri said yes. Pankuri, can you just unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about Arvind Eye Care?
Arvind Eye Care started doing very, very low cost eye surgeries, and they kind of created a system where it became very easy for patients to get eye treatments done, and they kind of replicated that and grew massively, and they brought down the cost of doing surgery, and especially cataracts and all for patients.
Mainly the cataract, absolutely right. But you know how this idea, where the idea came from? It's a very motivational story. The idea was borrowed from MACD. Can you believe it? That it was borrowed from MACD. So the founder, Dr. V, he was in true sense an innovator, and he was finding this problem of cataract being plaguing the poor India a lot, and he was trying to figure out that what can be done about it. And what he realized is that the major cost of a cataract surgery goes in paying the doctor who actually does the surgery. And in a day he can max do 2 surgeries, which was really costly. That's why the people had to pay a lot to them. That was increasing the overall cost of the cataract surgery that poor people cannot afford. Now he was visiting his sister in the US, and he happened to be in a MACD where he just took one burger, and then he was looking at the guy who served it. He found that he's a very normal looking, like very ordinary guy. And he said that how is he able to provide me this high quality burger? Doesn't seem like he's a very big cook or something. Then he went inside and he realized from the operations of MACD that there is one guy who is just making the patty. He is the chef. He is the one who is just making the patty, nothing else. He's not touching anything. And a full day he's just making the patty. And there are other people who are not skilled as the chef, but they are managing the everything else and serving high quality food. From there, he hired the idea that if in a cataract surgery, cutting the cataract is the most difficult task, and that's the reason why I'm paying so much to a doctor, why not I employ him to get only that done and nothing else? No preconditioning, no post-operation procedures to be taken, and they can just do it. And that's what actually Dr. V is, because I know that this group is there is a lot of medical professionals here, so this probably will be a very big inspiration for you. Look around you, and everybody in us are innovators if we can practice these 5 traits as said by Professor Clayton Christensen. Now coming back to why it is that design thinking is something that people are getting success in, let's look at the 5 stages of design thinking and try to see what's happening. You see all the 5 things, 5 traits that Professor Clayton Christensen and his team could find out in a research innovators has to be there in a design thinking activity. In different stages, you can see empathize is something where you need to have your ability to network, question, observe. Even if you start questioning yourself, you can frame a better problem statement, right? That's what you do in multiply analysis. When you associate an experiment, associating is all about connecting completely unrelated stuff, right? That's associating. So when you associate an experiment is what happens in the ideation and the prototype phase. I see some comments over here. This is from Sachin. Yes, Sachin, absolutely right. Velcro also is a brilliant example of somebody who went on a trip with his dog, and he could see something getting stuck. Yes, Velcro was an innovation too, similar kind of innovation. And if you see, most of the time we are actually borrowing ideas. It's not necessary that we have to come up with fresh new ideas. You can borrow ideas, apply to your context, and that can be a fresh new novel idea, right? For biomimicry, if you are interested in biomimicry, understanding how you can adopt more biomimicry techniques, you can go to one website, asknature.org. It's a brilliant website, and you can actually, let me see if I can share the here you can see asknature.org, and biological strategies, if you go here, then you will have a lot of strategies been spoken about for different activities that you want to do. So you want to break down something, okay, fine. How do you want to break down? You want to break down physically. So this is a really brilliant so that's the reason why we go into this design thinking as a methodology. And now let's try to understand what is there in innovation, how we can come up with more innovative products using the aspects of design thinking as a whole. What is there in innovation? This is something, this is a product that you can see on screen. There are mainly two things that you can look at. This is any website you open, you will get this kind of products. And there are two things that you can see mostly. There are attributes and there is some cost, right? So the secret innovation equation of innovation says that the only thing that you need to care about when you are coming up with a innovation in a product or a service is you need to keep increasing the value. And how you do that? Either you can increase the amount of useful attributes that are available in a product. So for say, if I look into this product, whatever this is kind of a Fitbit kind of a stuff. So whatever right now on the left hand side, whatever you're seeing are the attributes. And there are other attributes also which are visibly, we can see. It shows that there is a band and there is some kind of thing that gets into your hand and you have to tie it. So these are different attributes. Now the belt, it does not help you in doing anything, right? Only thing the belt does, it helps you in attaching the dial to you physically. Now what if you don't need the belt at all? That's an attribute you never asked for. It is there because you have to tie it. So what if in your, this is non-useful stuff, the belt is a non-useful attribute. If you can remove the belt but still the dial sticks to you, you don't really need the belt then, right? So you reduce the number of non-useful attributes, that increases the value also. You reduce the cost, that increases the value also. The only thing that you need to care about when you are doing an innovation is this equation. Don't look into anything else. Just look at it. Whatever idea comes in your mind, look at this and say, am I increasing the numerator and am I numerator and am I reducing the denominator? That's it. Fine. Now getting into ideation in specific, because you guys have already done with the first two stage, there are multiple tools available everywhere. So you can, ideation is the easiest step to do. It is something that just talk about a problem statement, people are going to come up with ideas. A lot of ideas come like that, right? So I will be just talking about two ideation methodologies that you can really use see, this is on basis of your teamwork. And the first one is of the power of collaboration. So when you can use the power of collaboration to create some ideas, that's something, a tool we can use called the idea web, where essentially you build upon each other's idea. So there is a problem to work on. You come up with an idea, paste it. The first person paste it, immediately others start branching out. And if you keep on doing it, you will find that people can build upon one single idea, which you, when you started off, even couldn't think of. So people going into minute details, and that's how you create a nice idea around. The other thing is something that I was talking to you right now about, which is more of associating, called the lateral thinking. That's the power of blend. And how this lateral thinking actually works, it works this way. Say you have a problem, and if you think of your problem as something for which you need a solution, you will struggle a lot, because our mind is naturally equipped to give you solutions for problems you are talking about. Now, if you can make your problem generic and then look for generic solutions and then come back to your specific problem, then it solves a lot of other issues as well. Just to give you an example how this worked, there was one problem that Tata Steel was facing. Okay, they had this furnace where they had the iron residues which were falling down and it was choking the chute. Now, this was the problem they wanted to solve and they didn't know what to do about it. So they asked the best experts in their domain and all. Nothing could be they could get out of it. There was an intern who came out with an idea and it worked. And what was the inspiration for that intern to come up with this idea? What he said is, see, when there is a fire in a building, And when we find that people are stuck inside, what happens? There is some kind of an emergency exit that's there. People run through it. So there is somebody who can design emergency exits when there is a choking situation happening. Can we borrow some idea from people who design this kind of buildings, buildings where it is expected to have a lot of gathering? Can we borrow some idea from them and apply it? They found it out, and they actually could make a solution for this shoot clearance. So this is how powerful your idea will become. And it was a novel idea. Nobody have tried it. In fact, they have patented this idea. It was a very noble idea. Why it was novel? Because when you can associate your problem with something completely different from, not at all from your domain, nobody else probably have thought about it. So there is a high probability that you will get a patentable idea if you go for lateral thinking. So ideation, when you are doing, you can choose any ideation methodology to come up with, but these two are very powerful ones. One is the idea web, the other one is the lateral thinking. It really helps. Now, this is the time when we are looking at design thinking aspect once more. What are the different pointers in design thinking and why we are doing it? Mainly because when you are collecting a lot of ideas, say you have a problem to work on, best way to handle that is to get a lot of ideas. So at least some 16, 17 ideas on one specific problem to solve. Once you're there, you have to start doing ideation in terms of how you are going to choose which among these 16 you are going to use finally, right? So this is where we say that there are two methods of doing ideation. One is the divergent stage and the other is the convergent stage. So when you are in the divergent stage, what you essentially do is you are being creative. Okay, you are receptive. You allow people to come up with new ideas. So it's more of a brainstorming where you don't judge any idea and you keep allowing all kind of crazy ideas. Why do you do that? Because at this stage, the first few ideas that come focus only on the problem statement, and that's why they are very futuristic. Why is it so? Because the problem comes from the user, right? So when it comes from the user, then automatically the first thing that comes in your mind is how do I solve the user's problem? But when you go to convergent thinking, you look into how can I implement my solution. And when you go into the implementation phase, it's more of how you are looking at the economic viability. This is why I put this thing. There are the three aspects, right? The business aspect, the technology aspect, the human aspect. Divergent stage is you being more looking at the human aspect. And convergent stage is where you are also looking at the other aspects, which are
divergent stage and convergent stage is something where you are divergent is all about collecting ideas. Convergent is about cutting ideas. Like you had been really ruthless. You have to be very truthful. You cannot have sentiments that this is my idea. And one thing that always comes as a barrier at this stage is, when you get passionate about your idea. This is always something that happens with innovators, that we get passionate, very passionate about our own idea, and we can't really get away with it. Remember one thing, when this problem happens, always ensure that you are in love with the problem. You are in love with your user. You don't care about the idea anymore. You are so much in love with your user that you just want to make him come out of the problem that he's facing through. So in that way, when you do that, if you season your mind like that, then you will be more receptive, welcoming others' ideas, which are really good. So at this stage, what you do is you do something called idea ranking. Right now, what you are seeing at the top, the ones in the black are the different parameters against which you rate your ideas. Okay, this parameters may change. These parameters are totally based on your necessity for the business. Okay, here I have generally, when you have you don't have any thing in mind that what are the different criteria should I be putting, you can blindly go ahead with this 4 criteria. These are very important when you are implementing. And since I am assuming that most of you are either entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs to be, so these are the things that are definitely going to help you. Number 1, the user desirability. Number 2, technical feasibility. 3, economic viability. And 4, environmental sustainability. Now, You put all your ideas. Say I said that approximately say 15, 16 ideas you have come up with. You put all your ideas on the left side corner and start rating, and you let people rate. So everybody rates. You decide a common number and you put it over here. General mistake over here is people will sort the total column just at the rightmost column, and they will score, they will find their highest scoring one. They say that yes, this is something that we can go ahead with. Don't do that mistake, because you guys are startups. You are planning to start your own. This is the time where you take the decision. Okay, how you take the decision? So say if I look at idea number 4, okay, idea number 4 is the lowest one. Automatically it should be cut off, right? But look at the user desirability factor. It is 9 out of the rest. It's 9, right? Technical feasibility is 2. What does that mean? Technical feasibility is 2 means, given the context of current situation we are in, the technological development that probably your organization is capable with, you are not able to come up with this solution at this point of time. That doesn't mean that you can't do a R&D. So the rest of the things doesn't actually matter. Environmental sustainability, more or less, you are scored in 7, 8, so don't worry much about it. When you are seeing that the score on user disability is very high, what does that mean is, if you are not focusing on that idea today, somebody else may come with that idea later on and completely disrupt you. So it's very important that you keep your user desirability factor high and deploy some resource to do research and development on this idea to understand what the technical requirements that are there. Economic viability means investment cost or product cost. Yes, economic viability means, is your company viable enough, will be profitable enough if they come up with this solution. I'll explain you how this works. So let's see about this part, idea number 3. Okay, see, ideally you will probably choose idea 1 and 2, right? But you see the user desirability factor is 5 and 6. Now if you come up with idea 3, your user desirability factor, your desirability score comes at 7. So what does that say? That says that your user will love your idea, but right now if you come up with that idea, you are not going to make a very good profit. Something that you are expecting, you are not going to get it. Now, how many startups in India do you see are really making good profits? Hardly any. If they would have stuck to the formula of, let's see the total count and then launch our startups, you would not have seen the Olas and the big baskets now, right? So if you have a crazy idea and you feel that that is able to solve the problem today, jump in. Now, I am not saying that what these guys are doing is right. I'm not saying that even if they are running for ages in loss, that's right. Definitely not. I don't believe in that. But it should not be a factor that should stop you from going ahead and starting your own business. Because you have investors, you have to figure out, obviously going down the line, you have to figure out how you can increase the economic viability factor. But at least when you start off, you should not ignore the user disability score, because that may haunt you later on. So there is one more question. Are there weights to the 4 parameters that we can use based on pricing to deduct a weighted average? See, Swati, this is up to you. How you want to do it is up to you. This is, you are looking at this sheet. When I show you this sheet, you are the boss, right? And you understand the best what decision you should be taking. If you feel, say, forget about the different parameters that I have put. Imagine that you have put certain parameters of your own. For example, there was one team in Mahindra Research Valley, and they were working on one product which had different factors to enroll in, and there was one factor, and none of them were these factors. There was one factor which was the user feeling that this is useful versus actually it is useful. So when they felt that user feeling that is useful is higher, they gave them a weighted average, and they additionally put a weight on it. So they said that no, if somebody is, if there is a score where I can show that the user believes that this is useful, I will be rating it more than whether it is really useful, right? So This is how it was. Up to you whether you want to put a weightage or not, because even if you put a weightage, you at the back of your mind knows that that's a weighted score, right? So it's completely depends on your current business situation, how you want to look at the idea ranking and how you go ahead and take ideas. Why I focused a lot on this is because most of the time people struggle here a lot and they come up with ideas which may not really work much. So Prashant's question is, does economic viability talks about the value product makes, that is the revenue, or the investment that the company does while ranking? Oh, okay. So see, it is more of how you can price. So see, it was this way. You have come up with a packet of biscuit. Okay, you have a manufacturing cost for it, you have a distribution cost for it, you have shelf life for it, everything is there. And then there is a price that you are putting which consumer is buying. So you will have approximately an idea of how much your user will be ready to pay for that. Now when you do this, when you do the math, you get a profit margin. That's where you decide that if I am going below this profit margin, I don't see this is economically viable for me to run this business for a longer period of time. It may so happen that somebody says that I am making only 1 rupee profit, and still it is okay to go ahead with for a longer period of time. That is economically viable for that company. But same logic somebody else look at and says, no, this doesn't make sense to me. 1 rupee is nothing. I cannot even reinvest and do my R&D. How will I spend on the idea phone now if I take only 1 rupee as profit? Fine, that's your decision, your economic viability, even if the economic viability for them probably becomes 2. Whereas the first guy said, no, economic viability, even 1 rupee is 7 for me. So that's how you define economic viability. These are words for you as a startup, as an entrepreneur, to decide how you want to define this. Fine. I guess we don't have any more questions on this, because we are going to, okay, there is something, let me see. Does economic talks about the value product makes, okay, so I was reading, yeah, thanks. Fine, okay, then since this is done, so this is till now is what we are talking about, the ideation phase, okay? And now we are done with this ideation phase, we are moving to prototyping. Guys, one thing before we start into prototyping, from my experience, I'll tell you, most of the time, very, very good ideas don't come to market because they don't prototype well. People believe, even you will see a lot of people who are talking about design thinking, they will say that if you don't empathize well, you don't get a product out. If you don't do this well, analyze well, you don't get a product out. But even if you have done everything well, even if your ideation has been brilliant ideas came, if you have not prototyped it well, you will not be able to bring out a good product into the market. Why? Because the whole process of design thinking is not only design thinking, whole process of innovation is all about mindset. Think about it, guys. If you are coming up with an innovation, if you are planning to come out with a product or a service, and the people you meet, they look at whatever you have come up with and say, no, ye to nahi chalega. Every time you go and they say, no, this is useless, this is not going to work. Will you be able to come up with something really good? No, right? So that's what, in innovation, though we always make innovation as a very mechanical stuff, that there are tools, techniques, there are trace methodologies, you can just put in, brilliant innovations will come out. No, ideas can come out. Innovations and idea, there is a big difference. Idea until implemented is not an innovation at all. And a big step in this implementation process is prototyping, and that's why we have to be very, very conscious when we are planning about prototyping. Now, I will require a little bit of volunteering from your end, and let me ask you these questions. Why do we prototype? Anybody can just unmute and let me know. Why do we prototype?
To validate the concept that we have developed. Because we never know whether the first concept that we have developed will actually be working or not. So with the prototyping, we come to know about the drawbacks of the current design, and we try to optimize the design and then come up with the final product, so that there won't be any surprises when we make the final product.
Very good, Prashant. But can you just tell me one more thing? That is, who are we prototyping for?
For us, to validate our design.
for
But
us
to get confidence on the design.
to get confidence on the design. Oh, wow. This is something that I didn't think of. Yes, definitely. That's a big factor. That it is definitely, we are also a party to it. We have to get confidence in our design. But as design thinking is all about, there's a lot of stakeholder stuff. So there are stakeholders, and I can see, I saw Dr. Madan wrote it, that to show it to the investor, to show it to the investor, to show it to the decision maker, to show it to the coder, to show it to the user. There are many people. So that's why it's most of the time people believe that it's for the user, but this is also a brilliant tool to get the buy-in of their decision maker. So, I say that decision maker in this case is an investor. If I say that in this case, as Prashant said, is us, yes, decision makers, to demonstrate to them, this is a very important part. And why is it important? Why should we know it? I'll come to that, but before that, let me just tell you what things you should be doing it before, while you are doing it. Yes, absolutely right. Angel investors and VC also. Yeah. So there are a few things that you should be doing before you actually go into the process of prototyping. First, try to understand whether your idea is complete. So say the 16 ideas you got, from there you have ranked them and come up with, say, the top 2 or 3 ideas, right? And you want to go ahead and prototype that. You want to try those things out. So first look at one idea, pick one idea and see that my idea is complete. Everything is there. Whatever masala I need, do I have it? If you have it, then ask, now when I prototype, whom am I going to prototype for? Why this is important, guys, is mostly because we generally think that one size fits all kind of thing is there, always goes in our mind. That's because that we feel that we create one prototype and we'll show it to people, right? Yeah, correct, Sachin. So this is obviously, that's why, if they don't know, the users don't know what they are looking for, so prototype is a good way to show them that this is something coming for you. So essentially, the reason why you try to understand whom you're prototyping for is because while prototyping, it is important that you don't go into details, unnecessary details. Unnecessary in the sense like unnecessary for the person whom you are going to show the prototype. For you, yes, you want everything to be there, right? But if you go on putting things into your prototype and say your user at the end says, no, I didn't want it this way, I wanted a little different. All your time and resource that you spend on making the prototype is gone for a waste. So you cannot afford to do that. We have to be lean and agile when we are applying design thinking and coming as startups. Definitely lean and agility is very, very important. And so if you want to go lean, you have to create your prototypes at the least cost possible. And you cannot go into very details, even if your user or the stakeholder you are showing them to, they are not interested. Most of the times you may have in an investor sitting, that investor may not be a technical person. He may not be interested in knowing exactly what are the specifications you have used in your prototype that is going to work. He is more interested probably in how well the end result comes. Here comes a very important stuff to realize. There is a big difference between solution and goal. When you wanted to solve a problem, that was a goal. But your solution, the one you have come up with, your idea, that's not the goal. That's a way you reach that goal. So there is a big difference between people who want to see the goal and who wants to see the solution. If you are pitching to somebody who wants to see the goal, your product will be different from somebody who wants to see the solution. So we call this the DPS approach. Okay, not at all related to Delhi Public School, but it is depth, precision, and speed. Okay, so these are the 3 things that you need to keep mind on. So there are a few things. Let me look at the question that has come. Prototype is your first future market product? Yes, absolutely. Prashant says, where is the virtual validation in the process of design thinking? Does it come under prototyping? Yes, it comes under prototyping. a lot of companies are nowadays moving towards VR, AR instead of directly going for the prototype. What is your take on this? We'll talk about this. I will come to this. Let's first keep this in mind. But definitely, this is something that is very important. Honestly speaking, VR, AR is see. It's again going back to lean. If you are actually not making something physical, and if you are able to provide a kind of prototype that customers can interact with, nothing better than that. You don't have anything physical, just imagine this. But there are certain things where there is a requirement of touch and feel, right? I mean, come to Kolkata and during a puja time and say that I will virtually show you garments and you can buy stuff during puja. You will not find anybody, there is no taker for it. Even if you show all this with this Google mirror and all that, see it looks good on you and all, people here want to touch. So yes, obviously you can say that, why don't I use some kind of haptic suit? Yes, you can do that. But well, you will probably spend a lot creating that than you actually make a garment, right? So yeah, Swati said that we could use a prototype using a 3D printer. Yes, definitely you can use a 3D printer too. But even before, let's try to understand that how you frame your prototype statement. If you have a prototype statement ready, it's very easy to come up with prototypes. So what is this depth, precision, and speed? I know very for sure that you understand speed. You don't need to, I don't need to explain you speed, because when you have multiple concepts to try on, you need speed, right? So this is more or less every prototyping statement should have that. I need speed for sure. What is depth and precision? Before that, let me explain you one very simple concept, which is the FAB concept, which is feature, advantage, and benefit. Most of the time, we'll see in advertisements, different product advertisements that we see in TV and all, we see that people say that the technology, this is the technology that is there in your product. So say, if I say that you didn't know about Bluetooth technology before, I may tell you that, why don't you buy this phone? This has a Bluetooth technology. And when you didn't know about it, you would tell me that sounds cool, but I don't know, why should I be buying that? Then you say, you know what, you can transfer files. Still you don't really realize, because that's the advantage I'm talking about. There is an advantage of transferring files. You can transfer files, good. But still the user says that, okay, I can transfer, but yeah, I have internet, why do I transfer? And then you say the third point, which is the benefit, which is something that the customer cares for. And you say that, you know what, when you don't have internet, but you still need the file to be transferred from his phone to your phone, you actually can use this technology. This technology can really help. Then that's a spark moment for the user. He is looking for that. He's not looking for the Bluetooth technology or any technology in that way, right? So your user is not looking for your solution. Your user, or rather specifications of the solution, your user is looking for the goal. That's why depth is all about benefit and precision is about the feature. So when you are talking to a developer kind of a person, you are telling him about the feature. And when you are talking to your customer, you are talking about the depth of it. So these are the three questions that you need to ask. And in a prototype framing statement, don't keep more than two of this. Where is the goal achieved? Or if you want to show the goal achieved or not, is when you are going to say, I need depth. I need to show the end result. When you are going into the technical requirements that see something, so when you are going to do this, when somebody who is taking a decision is looking at the economic viability part. Is it doable? What technology we are talking about? Technical feasibility and economic viability. Your company will be interested in knowing whether that's possible for them to run now, whether the money is there to run your show. So that's where you are going to talk about this part. S, definitely you have to keep on putting S in almost all statements, mostly, because you need to make multiple iterations. Okay. So just to give you an example, there was one problem statement. This is a real life problem statement. Okay. So there was one lady and she's a painter, and she had a problem that she's painting and the board is very big. The paper is big. She is not able to reach at the far corners of the board. And that's why she is unhappy. And most of the times she actually has to bend or has to stretch herself. So somebody wants to solve this problem. And whatever the solution is something like this, where you can see this two parallel stuff and the board moves on the X and the Y axis. Brilliant, very good. The painter doesn't move, the board moves. Awesome. Now, when you are coming to this user, telling her, see, this is something that I'm coming up with. You don't talk about something that you actually thought, probably a kind of a motor with a camera that detects the movement of the user. I don't know whether this kind of things actually exist. I just combine all this stuff to make it look very superficial, okay? However, this is something good for your developer or your management or your team, that how do we develop this? Is it really possible? Is the technology actually does this kind of stuff? Can somebody just take a picture and accordingly it can adjust the board? All these are important for the technical guy. But when you are showing this stuff to this lady, for her, this much like a two-point linkage or a wiper motor kind of a linkage is pretty good. You can just by your hand move it at the back and say that, well, is it good for you or is it not? Now, she will give you upfront data about whether she is liking it or not. You don't need to go ahead and make the motor. What if she is not looking at this kind of a solution? So you just, for her, you just go and use that. Show it to her that this is what, how the whole thing will move. Are you okay with that? Get the feedback. Then go ahead and plan it. Okay, fine. Now I have to move ahead and create a motor kind of stuff and all the stuff. That hi-fi stuff comes later. So, how does your statement looks like? Your statement, prototype framing statement looks like this. We need speed to come up with multiple concepts and depth to show the result of our solution to the user. So when there is user, you need speed and depth. But when it comes to, say, developer, you need this. Feasibility options, you are going to iterate a lot of feasibility options. This is not multiple concepts. These are feasibility options, right? And you have to explain the working principle. That's why you need precision. Fine. So this is how you frame your prototyping statement. And this is how, these are the few steps sequentially you do when you decide what to prototype and how to prototype. Fine. So what's the first thing? I don't know whether you have actually gone through the journey map, but generally in your empathize stage, you should do that. A journey map, creating a persona and your journey map. Okay. So what is journey map? Journey map is nothing but making a picture of your user as it is and trying to understand what that user does during the activity where that person faces the problem, before that activity, whatever that person does, and after that activity, what a person does. Okay, if you can just create a map of it, that this is what they do, this is how they move, this is what they touch, everything in details, and it will happen only if you have observed your user really well, right? So if you have created the journey map, look at it once more, look at the different aspects where the user was not happy. So you have the areas where you can immediately make a change and you want to fit in your prototype at that location, right? Break the whole plan into multiple small parts. Let the team decide how they want to do it, how they want to bake. And do time boxing for the first phase, where you just use some kind of sketch. Don't start the moment you have an idea. Don't start with, okay, let me get the specifications of it. Let me buy a motor or something. Don't do that. First, 1.5 minutes, not more than that. This is the time when the maximum flow of your ideas come. Draw it out. How will your whole system look like? What it does. Just 1.5 minutes, nothing more than that. Beyond that, add dimension to your idea. Use thermocol, use paper, use something like we used to do in childhood, the crafts and all. Create some kind of 3D model. Okay, look at it. See, you will be gaining confidence. And then slowly as you go from one stage to the other, keep on increasing the time boxing time. Now, there may be situations where you may not be, so this is something coming for people who are going to make products, okay? And when you are making products, probably you may get it done by a fabrication team, somebody else may be making it. Previously, what you probably used to do is do a CAD model or a wireframe model or some kind of simulation model or something. You share it and say that this is how I want it to look like. Now, whatever you guys have made till date, the thermocol models and everything, share everything with them so that they understand the intent. Otherwise, the intent never gets conveyed really well. Okay, so this is important for people who are actually looking to come up with products. Mostly service, you don't need to get a fabrication team to help you on that. So how the final product will be like? The final product will be something where you borrow in different aspects. So you actually borrow some ideas from your user based on the product that you have shown. They will tell you that no, I don't want this way, I want it this way. And you essentially, if you have a team, you essentially got the best of all the ideas that people have come up with, merge them, and then show that this is how the final output looks like. Fine. So this is how the whole system of prototyping will work for you. Now, is there any questions on prototyping till now? I am pausing the share for now. You can let me know if you have questions on this. I have something bonus coming up for you, but before that, I just want to see, and this bonus that I will be talking to you about is going to be very useful for people who are going to start up, who right now has an idea to work on or are planning to start up. Really cool. So if you don't have any questions on product, we can move on, but let me know if you have any questions. No questions? Great, no problem. So before I, okay, what if rather than physically prototyping, we show the user or investor through PPTs or PPT simulation? I'll share one example. Okay, what happened with me. So this was pretty recent thing that happened. So there was one person who was looking to move his meter box, okay, from inside the house to outside the house. And he said that there are a lot of problems that he's facing. He has to make some hole on the wall to do it, transfer the wires and all. So the moment I looked at it, I had some idea, and I made a PPT. Okay, I made a PPT. In one slide, I showed that how the whole thing will work when you take it out and how easily you can do it. I showed it to him, and he was not at all happy with whatever I made. Okay, he came up with more problems into it. He said, oh no, this is not going to work. You know, this is the problem, that is the problem. And then I realized that the problem actually is happening in terms of me not able to explain him exactly what is there in my mind. A PPT is, because it's a 2D, somehow it does not explain it. You know, when you are making that PPT, you will believe that I don't see a reason why it's not explaining. It's definitely explaining, because that idea is ours. It is in our mind. The moment we start making it, see that, oh, I could make a really good thing. But the other guy, on the other hand, is completely, he has no idea of what you are talking about. Then what I did is, I just made one there was one thermocol lying around, and I just cut it and just put it in the way I was thinking I will put it outside, and asked him that, now can you come and just have a look at it? He said, wow, this works. Now that you worked on it, right? You changed the idea. So I said, yeah, I changed the idea. But actually it was the ditto idea which I actually put in the PPT. So PPT, we believe it works, but believe me, most of the time it really doesn't work. If you can show a 3D model, somehow 3D, not necessarily it has to be a additive manufacturing made hi-fi model, make it a 3D model, they will love it. Say your user, your investor, whoever. Okay, so before I move in the bonus section, because bonus is something really that's really cool, I want to show you a thing that happened with a team within a team who was working with me on an idea. And there is this Just a minute. So yeah, so I will share the design thinking journey that we had in Mahindra Research Valley. So pretty much the story starts around this stuff. Okay, any guess what is this? Because it's very important to understand what is actually is it design thinking actually doable? Somebody can run it. And I wanted to share this experience with you. Anybody, just random guess, what is this? I saw something coming. Tractor. Arey yaar, Prashant. I know you know it's tractor. Yes. Yeah, it's a tractor, but I'll share more about this. Okay, so these are different glimpses of, you can see me in almost every picture. These are the different people who were working with me, okay, on different projects. And the project that I am going to talk to you about starts with this picture. I'll come to you what it shows and what it says, okay. So this is something that we did for the first time, which is before we were actually going out, and the project that we were working on is from Mahindra. Mahindra wanted to come up with a new product that is going to increase the rotavator cell. Rotavator, if you may not be knowing, it's a kind of an agricultural implement. It's a tool that helps in breaking hard soil. Okay, so this are used by farmers before they sow the seed. We were working on this. And the first step that we did is we came out of our confirmation bias. Now, this is something that I spoke with the last batch. Briefly, I'll just tell you guys what is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is something where you actually have certain bias about a certain user profile. So whenever I say farmers, we are going to interview farmers. You know, this group that you are seeing in front right now, I asked them to start jotting down what comes in their mind when I say farmers. And they started out with farmers are poor, farmers are they are struggling. There's a lot of things that they have in mind. Now, most of them were wrong because farmers not necessarily are really poor people. There are many rich farmers. They have some kind of, like some people have 4 to 5 tractors, 2 to 3 harvesters, costly implements. And so how you overcome this confirmation bias? First, you jot down everything that is there in your mind about your user profile. So you are going out to work for some kind of a user profile, say geriatric population, elderly people. You have an idea in mind that probably they are maybe bored, alone in their home, and that may not be true. So whatever is there in your mind, first jot it down. Then people with whom mostly they interact, ask them that how many of whatever you have jotted down they believe is true, and you will see it's eye-opener. There's a lot of things that they will say, no, this doesn't actually happen. Because if you are on the field with a confirmation bias, you will tend to ask questions which confirm your bias. That's why it's called confirmation bias. So you don't do that. You necessarily should not go into that pitfall. Next, they were doing this, so we went ahead and did this, and then we actually went to the field. And we interacted with this farmers, and you can see that people are actually sitting the way they are sitting. This is very important in your observe and engage phase. You actually start imitating the way they are doing, but don't imitate in a way that you look intimidating. You don't do that. You do it in a very subtle way so that it doesn't look odd, but you still try to help them out in things they are doing so that they become, you become more trustworthy. You remember that blue box, right? You need to be very trustworthy before somebody opens up in front of you. Otherwise, empathy will just sound empathy, but it won't work. It will remain as sympathy. Okay, so that's what you do while you are empathizing. You observe and engage in this way. Then we were capturing stories and emotions of the people. And what you see over here is this guy. He is a new joinee. He joined recently, and he made this picture. So he's an engineer from MRV. So what he was drawing, actually, if you can see, this is what he was drawing. He was drawing to explain to the farmers that what his path has been. Like, he is a new engineer, joined Mahindra recently. He has been taught, you can see auditorium here written. So there is some kind of things that new engineers go through in auditorium. So he just drew that. Then he said that we learned things, how to design. We have been to manufacturing plants. We have learned how things happen. So all this stuff he did. Why he did that is to gain the confidence again. When you draw this on your own and then you say that, why don't you draw your life also? Then they come up more promising. Then they actually do something. So they first saw somebody doing it, they realized, Acha, this is what they're asking. And that's when they drew this. This is what we call in design thinking terminology, draw your day. This is a very, very powerful way of collecting insights. And this one picture had got Mahindra a patent. Now you know why. Because you can see what he has drawn is, this is him, he has put him here. And he says that 7 a.m. I start working on the field. This is 9 a.m. He drew it. He didn't say anything. He just drew it. And then we saw that he's down the tractor, from the tractor. 9:30 a.m. he is showing that he's having food. Okay, so we said that, why did you come down? Because half an hour it doesn't require you to come and have your food. Then what were we doing? He said that, no, we come down often. And we said, why? Why do you come down? He said that we come down to clean the rotavator. So we said, that's interesting. What happens with the rotavator? And that's where you see that we were actually into the mode of questioning. And all questions has to be open-ended. Very important, guys. You cannot ask it, so do you find this problem in the rotavator? And don't ask a yes or no question. Ask, what happens with it? He will give you enough stories. Your user will give you more stories than you can even believe. So he said that, you know what happens, this muddy, this ground is muddy, right? So there is a lot of mud that gets accumulated in this rotavator and it doesn't perform that well. It doesn't mix the soil well. So then that made us realize that this is a problem. Now, believe me, before this interaction, we had almost some 15, 16 interactions. Every farmer had this problem, but nobody spoke about it. Why? Because they felt that this is a new norm. This is a norm. This is how it happens. And that's the reason why, if you remember what Henry Ford said, that if I would have asked my customers what they want, they would have said faster horses and never said a new vehicle, right? It's an automobile. Nobody would have said that. Same thing here, same problem. User don't even know that there is a problem. So that's when we realized that we need to come up with a solution. And then we came back, we did a lot of ideation. There was a lot of brainstorming happening, ideation, bucketing, and all the stuff happened. Then obviously, as innovators, we have to borrow ideas, and we've borrowed ideas somehow from this typical mixer grinder setup. And there was a lot of, this is where the prototyping comes, and you can see the different configurations. These are the different concepts that has been tried out. That is the ideas, the different ideas that we spoke of in ideation phase. And these are the different trials that were done. So these trials are nothing but, while you are doing prototyping, you are analyzing what works, right? And so, yeah, so this is where, this is what the whole thing was all about. I can't, actually I thought that I had the final proto, but I can't show it because it's still patent pending. So that's how some product has been actually made while applying design thinking. And I wanted to share this with you to give you the confidence that it's no-brainer, you can actually do it. So now I guess it's time that I take you to the bonus part today. And here it is. So, Achha, by the way, before I go into the bonus thing, any questions based on this experience that I shared? Was it good?
Hi there, Shandan. This is Aditya Oswal. I'm a student, second year student.
Yes.
Actually wanted to know how long did that whole activity last that you did?
This one was pretty long in the sense, like the first part where you saw we went out and did all the stuff and came back and the ideation began. This stuff was pretty fast. This took us not more than 1 week and fully dedicated. Like you don't do anything else. You just do this. So in 1 week, we planned whom to meet. We did the the empathizing part. We completed that. We came back, did the ideation, and prototyping onwards is where the time really took us almost close to 1.5 months, because there were multiple failures. And this was also good because we did a lot of rapid prototyping here. We applied a lot of rapid prototyping techniques here. And finally, the product that has come out, is a change in blade design that we did. So that came after almost 2 months of overall exercise. So it takes a little bit of time.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question? Can you explain time boxing again? I missed it. Okay. So time boxing is something where you put a pressure on yourself. Okay. And you necessarily should do it with a team. Why you should be doing it with a team? Because there is somebody who will say that I am not taking more than 1.5 minutes. Why are you taking more time? You should not do that. So you need that kind of people around you so that people keep you on toes. Now, why do you do that? Because when I tell you that you have 1 minute and you have to come out with 10 different uses of a rubber band, you'll start thinking, right? 10 ideas, 1 minute. Actually, 10 ideas in 1 minute is not difficult. I'll rather come with 100 ideas. I'll rather say 100 useful ways of using a rubber band in 1 minute. Your brain, the moment you put that impulse in your brain, it's all in our amygdala. It works. Suddenly fires all our neurons. And for that 1.5 minutes, you come up with brilliant ideas. So time boxing is nothing but boxing yourself within a time bound stuff. Okay. When you start initially to plan your prototype, time box it and create a picture of how your prototype looks like. Stop there. Look into everybody's, what they have come up. And then from that, make one single again. From that, start moving into the next phase, which is adding dimensions. Again, do a time boxing. Now, since you are using 3D, you probably need more time for it. So you may say that I need probably say give 20 minutes. 20 minutes will come up with something. But 20 minutes is something you respect. So time boxing is all about being respectful of time. Okay. So yeah, I will now show you something where the challenge is you will come up with a new business idea in minutes. Okay, if you have a business idea or if you have a plan to start in any sector, you have planned that this is where I want to be, I will help you to come up with a business idea right now in minutes. Now, how will I do that? Before that, let me ask you, anybody, because this is very much medical enforced team, what is this? What am I trying to say? If I say that I want you to come up with a business idea in this sector, what do I mean?
Solve a problem in a particular sector. Identify and solve a problem.
Identify and solve a problem in a particular sector. Okay. Any particular sector you can come out with this picture?
So right now, healthcare seems pretty big.
Yeah, so actually this picture I intentionally put is for the health tech. Yes, e-commerce of healthcare. Okay, e-commerce of healthcare is what I had in mind when I put it. I don't know whether I could convey it. Telemedicine, yes, absolutely. Telemedicine, teleconsultancy, whatever. There's a lot of stuff happening right now. Yes. Now, if I tell you, come up with a new business idea in this sector. Can anybody just randomly can come up with one idea? Can I do this? I am planning. I think that this is a good opportunity. Anyone, any idea? You know, there are Practo, there is NetMed, there is 1mg, there is who not, Midlife, a lot of them. Anything that is parallel with them, whatever you can think of. Online delivery from the pharmacist. Yes, online delivery from the pharmacist. So it's similar to Practo, right? Practo, 1mg, right?
What if we combine the consultation and the pharmacy in one website? Like whatever the doctor writes, the same website will send you those medicines and will send it to you whenever you need it, like for every month or something like that if it's a chronic disease.
Okay, fine. So you mean that it's a consultancy plus medicine plus remembering that you need that every time?
Yes, exactly that.
Okay, fine. Okay, great. Using IoT
What
to...
about a central... Sorry.
Yeah. Carry on.
What about a central database where all your doctors and all your medication and you have like a full history and that database also connects to a more it's an intelligent database, so doctors who are probably not that well connected or they haven't encountered a particular disease in the past can input certain symptoms and get a lot of research, a lot of examples. So like a central database where a patient as well as a doctor could get access to information which is particular to a patient as well as to the whole healthcare system.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is something I think that's where the whole thing will move ahead to, I guess, because if you look at what we are doing now, I mean, there is no offense to anybody over here, but let me just look at it how we have today, healthcare, right? But do we really do healthcare? We do seek care. When we are sick, we go to doctors. Do we really actively have things which can take care of our health before even we actually feel sick? We really don't have it, and that's one area, I guess, where the future of healthcare industry is definitely heading to, given what Swati actually pointed out. IoT, wearables-based AI, data analytics. There are so many exponential technologies that actually can take us to a different level altogether, right? So that's probably where we are going to head towards. We'll see what the future of healthcare is. Probably you guys may have a lot of ideas. Abhishek talking about online profiling of patients, so many docs across spectrum can access data. Yes, absolutely. So it's again coming back to data analytics, data visualization and all those stuff. So there is a convergence that we may see between innovative business models and the use of exponential technologies. And when these two merge, there is definitely going to be a boom. If you want to know more about all this stuff, I would recommend you two people you definitely should follow. One is Ray Kurzweil, RayKurzweil, Ray Kurzweil, and the other guy is Peter Diamandis, PeterDiamandis. These two people, and Peter Diamandis mainly right now is somebody who is talking a lot about healthcare and the future of it, the exponential thinking part. You can look at Abundance Digital, amazing magazine that talks a lot futuristic stuff, and you will get to know what's happening in the world, what's there. If you know about Singularity University, that's another brilliant place to be in with like-minded exponential thinkers. So all this stuff are very important, and if I go into that mode, I'll keep on talking about it. So I'll stop myself and going into there. So let's move on to the next surprise that I was talking about. So fine, I have heard you, you have new ideas, all those is good. What if I tell you that you can very confidently come out with an existing system, whatever is existing? Let's say Practo is there, 1mg there, NetBase is there. You don't want to come up with a new business idea. You just want to be there with them only, but still you can create a value proposition for yourself. So for that, I'm giving you this 6x6x6 matrix to innovate. So what is it? First thing is, any product or service you can think of actually has 6 stages of customer interaction. Starting from purchase, you actually make a purchase decision. So for example, if I take say Practo, you purchase something. If you're purchasing say medicine from there, you're looking for the medicine, then you are adding it to cart, then you're making a payment. All this comes under the purchase stage. Next comes delivery. How do they deliver? Do they deliver at door? Do they deliver immediately next day? How do they deliver? What is the box they are putting? What's the packaging and all those stuff? Everything goes into delivery. Use is actually which one? This is only for healthcare. Which one? This is, I am taking an example of healthcare. That doesn't mean that this is for healthcare. I can give you examples of, you tell me what example you want. I can give you example of anything. Okay, this is applicable for anything. Let me change a little. Okay, let me come out of healthcare now and let me give you an example for what, say a biscuit company. Okay, any biscuit company. Okay, Parle. So Parlay is right now is on different aspects of the, say they are on Big Basket. Okay. And I'm not taking Parlay as an example because you don't start up as a Parlay, you rather can start up as Big Basket. So let me take the example of Big Basket. So in Big Basket, you have first stage is the purchase, where you decide what all products you want. So the way they show you the way you can filter different types of products. So everything is possible in a Big Basket website, right? How it helps you in making a purchase decision, adding it to cart and making the money transfer, it all goes into purchase. Next comes delivery. How Big Basket does delivery. Right now, you can see that most of them, I guess, they are also doing contactless delivery, and they have certain kind of packaging that they do for years. They have been doing it, very delicate stuff and all when they send you and all. So that goes into delivery. Third is use. Use is the product that they sell and the things that you use. Why I asked you to come up with a new product idea just before this is because that most of the time innovators only keep themselves within the innovation area of use. We say that if they are selling medicine online, I will sell medicine and grocery online. Somebody will say, I will sell medicine, grocery and garments online. So it's just use that we are talking about, is the products that user uses is what we mostly innovate on. But there is not one stage. There are 6 different stages. So after use comes supplements. Supplements is like, say, the moment you buy bread, you probably need to buy butter as well. So if you have bought bread, automatically you may see sometimes Big Basket popping that people who bought this also buys this. So supplements, they are suggesting you supplements. Okay. Maintenance, you bought a stuff from somebody and you bought a stuff from Big Basket, and how you use that product for a longer period of time. How do you maintain that product? Sometimes there is some kind of packaging that comes with, which helps you to keep that product at your home for, say, the next 3-4 months. The packaging itself is that good. So that's what maintenance is. If there is a special maintenance requirement, that's also something that a product requires, and some startups can provide that. Finally, disposal. You are done with the product. How do you dispose it off? Now, when you have these 6 different stages, you also have 6 different utility levers. We call this utility levers. At each of this stage, you can use each of these utility levers to create an innovation. How is it so? Just randomly, let's take that if I say productivity in delivery. How can I help to my user to be more productive while delivery? What do I mean when I say productive? Probably reducing the time it requires for him to accept the delivery. So if I say that you don't have to, there is something that Uber used to do, right? That you don't have to even look at your credit, you just add the credit card, it will cut from it. Or rather, we have the Ola Money, it automatically deducts from our Ola Money account. So these are things that have reduced the time it takes now you to look at how much bill is there. Okay, let me check whether I have that much money. You open your wallet. So all these are time consuming, and your focus is to make your user productive. So at delivery point of view, you actually reduce that time. So this is the powerful different utility levers. Each one of these, once you use at each one of these stages, like productivity, if you say, for example, I take a risk in terms of, it can be financial risk, it can be physical risk. See, a lot of Zomato ads right now says, our kitchen are completely sanitized. Kitchen you are hiring from is completely sanitized. Recently, I saw a very important, very nice way of, by Firangi Bake, Fasos brand. What they have done is, some user has taken this photograph. While with the bill, they have given a sheet of paper where they have mentioned temperatures of all the people who were involved in making the whatever food that person ordered, and that they have attached with the bill. They have shared it. So, and they have written over there that people who are involved in making your product, this is the temperature reading of them today. So that gives you the confidence. And it's very important, guys. mainly this time, since this is COVID-19 time, it's very important that you ensure your user, your consumer, that you are doing things which is risk-free for them. They are very scared with this COVID-19 stuff. So use any one of these levers in any of this one of the stages, you can create an innovation. Now, why this is 6x6x6? Because there is something that we called elements of transformative business model, and these are the 6 things. So if you need to make things simple at the stage of, say, disposal for a product using say closed loop or asset share, closed loop, for example, closed loop. If I take the closed loop example, so if you know IKEA, what they used to do is, in case you are done, once you are done with your using the product, in the IKEA stores, they have certain kind of arrangement made where you can come back and dispose your product off. You don't need to keep it throwing at your place and you don't know what to do next with it. So they ensure that things are pretty simple. You can just go and drop it back at my place. Just imagine if you use any of one of these 6 different elements of transformative business models, combine it into any of these 6 stages of customer interaction stages, you will come up with brilliant ideas, right? You can come up with ideas that is going to create a brilliant innovation for your company, right? So this, if you want, you can take a screenshot of this. This is definitely going to work. Actually, I created a game out of it. I don't know whether you can see that. This is a box and there is something, there is a dice on it. So you just use the dice and you can see I have put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Accordingly, for all of this, I have that. But if you just play with this dice, whatever comes in your mind, you just choose that this is the sector I want to be in. And who are the people who are already in? I want to create something similar to them, but with a value proposition. What do I do? Play this using this. First, you decide what stage you are going to work on. So number 1, stage. Decide the stage. Number 2, decide what utility lever are you going to use. Is it going to be productivity? Is it going to be convenience? Is it going to be simplicity? Fun and image. By the way, fun and image, if you want to understand what is fun and image, say if you are trying to make a purchase and there is some kind of funny way to take you, or rather it's very interesting, some eye-catchy way to take you to the payment gateway stage. While you are waiting for the payment gateway stage, some kind of fun games or pop up because it doesn't want you to lose at that stage. That's something fun and image. Image mainly, on the other hand, is something where it creates a brand image for you. So if it makes you feel that probably you are contributing to the society with something. So they say that if you do this, then I will be contributing a part of it to some kind of charity or something. So that this all create an image for you as an individual, which makes you feel proud to make a purchase decision, right? So in this, all these 6 stages, if you apply this 6 utility levers and then look at the 6 elements of business models, then you can really create brilliant innovation. I would love to hear from you what kind of innovations you could come up with. By the way, this is a kind of summary. You can take a screenshot of this if you want. This will help you to remember everything that we have spoken of today. And I guess that you cannot get this presentation, so you can actually take screenshots whenever, whichever is important for you. And finally, I'll just share with you what I am able to see. This is what I am getting. So this is a live thing that's coming. The moment you put something, I get it over here. Also, I wanted to show you this because you can use this. This is a very powerful tool for capturing insights. Brilliant tool. Go to Mentimeter if you want to create your own presentation. Menti.com is where people who actually put the feedback, they come. Mentimeter is where you can go collect insight, and if you have a public vote to take or you want to run any kind of programs on that, use it. It's a very, very powerful tool to use. So that's it. I think I'll stop the share right now. I'm getting the feedback. Thank you. I think there's only one column that is getting. Thanks a lot that you really enjoyed today's session. And I'm sharing my details over here. In case you want to connect with me, these are my details. You can take a screenshot of this as well, and we can get connected. So questions, I'll keep this open and I'll love to take a few questions. I guess there is only one. Okay, Bishwit asked for the question, code 42861 is the code, 42861.
Hello Shantanu, this is Aditya again.
Yes,
could you open the slide with the 6x6x6 matrix?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
So, for example, if I want to go into the EdTech sector, education technology, right?
Okay.
So the competition there are Byju's.
Okay.
Right? I can't remember others right now. So the major is Byju's.
Okay.
Now you said we need to roll a dice. Could you explain me the process? What would be the step-by-step process for me?
Forget the roll or dice thing, because this is you need this box for it. You don't have it, so forget it. Okay, what you do randomly, first do it is that you first get to understand what Byju's does. Get all the details about Byju's, that this is where they are, and then plot where have they innovated across this horizontal stages: purchase, delivery, use, supplement, maintenance, disposal. What is happening? Now, one complaint that I hear a lot about Byju's is they put a lot of pressure on parents to go for their top level some packages or something. So people are not happy about it. Now, when people are not happy with your competitors, something is an opportunity for you. Now, where do it come? It comes in say purchase. And what is the problem? What is the utility lever you can work on? That is risk. Financial risk on purchase. Think about it, purchase and risk. If I can do something about it, can I come up with a innovation over there? Now, when you are doing that, naturally you will get some ideas probably. In case you don't get, look at the six elements of transformative business model. Can I do personalized something that individual students get something, and then I say that, see, I am charging it this much mainly because this is going to be very specific to your child. You can show probably the level of change, because see, end of the day, as I said, user always wants the benefit. They doesn't want how many modules you have. They want to know what change do I see if I buy your stuff. So if you can come up with personalization in a way where you reduce the risk. What is the risk? Nobody is not reluctant to pay the money just because the money is a lot. They believe that I am paying so much, but I'm not sure whether that is going to be fruitful for my kid, whether he will be able to take all that. Now, if you say that I am curating certain stuff which is very specific to your child, because I have done technology based something which have gathered enough information about your kid, and I have a lot of idea about what he is or what he's in his mind and all the stuff. Now I have curated this stuff for him. I don't think that the money that Byju's is asking right now, and they are getting bashed in social media, many people are talking about that they are charging a lot. When you do that, they will be probably a little more comfortable, because you can actually show them that, see, I know things about your child, I can transform him. So this is one of the ideas that come to me, but you have 6 different stages to look at and 6 different utility levers to work on.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Anton, hello.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, okay, the host here. So,
yeah.
I have a question, like with respect to what we saw today. So, so my question here is, it's more of a overview wala question. So, in case of let's say, if the topic or the area we are approaching, that is more of incremental this thing. So something like a product already exists in the market, and the product we are trying to build is incremental. The even if we are after, like if we have already made a prototype, how do we proceed, like talking to the experts, and how do we approach the experts in that matter? Because something like that already exists, so we'll be just incrementing upon, okay, for example, X has already been done, so I'll be just doing Y basically. So how do we approach experts in that matter ki, okay, हमें incrementally करना है, but how do we figure out basically more information about this?
Okay, Abhishek, I got you. So, dekho, see, one simple thing that you need to do is don't go and talk to any expert. So, I assume that when you say experts, I assume that you are telling about that, say, investors. If I go to them, is it like that? That this is
no. The technical people, perhaps, like the doctors for that matter, or let's say the teachers for that matter. Some experts who have better knowledge about that field.
Okay.
Those kind of experts.
Okay. So what you are going to them for?
I'm going to them for gaining insights. I am wanting to do. Uske baad why? So I am trying to gather insights from them.
Okay. So you are trying to actually figure out the gap, and you are asking me that there are things already existing. How do I know from them the different insights, right?
Yes.
See, one suggestion will be that very easily, don't go as if you are somebody who is going to make the new product. Okay. Go as if you are using the product. Say, if you are going to a teacher, and teacher is somebody won't be a stakeholder for Byju's. Say for Byju's, the stakeholder probably is parents. Okay. And you want to, for you, he's the expert here, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what you do is you go to them and say that, you know what, I have been using Byju's. I was thinking, should I be using for somebody? Cook up a story, no problem. You are an entrepreneur. You can cook up 1,000 stories. And then just say that, what do you feel? How is it? But of course, you have to have the prior knowledge of them having some interaction with Byju's, if they have not used it, or if they have used it, whatever. But some idea they should be having about Byju's. Now, when you go like that, they will be very vocal with you. And they will say, no, don't use it. This is a problem. This is a problem. You will get so many problems that you will be overwhelmed with. Okay, wow, there are so many stuff. Then if you want to further ask them about things that where the Byju's have actually innovated, and still probably you want to know that what they missed, then talk about that. But they have done this also, no? So is it not something good? Let that person come back and tell you, no, still this is the problem. No, then you will start figuring out the different aspects that Byju's probably has missed.
All right, amazing.
Same here for other stuff also, like for online consultation. You go as a patient. See, the IDEO guys, they actually wanted to understand how to innovate in hospital. They injured themselves and went in. You have to be a patient to understand from the doctor why they don't like Practo or something if they are not liking. If you believe that they may not like and you can create a parallel system, you need to go as a patient and ask him, okay, you are using Practo, so that's good only, no? That's everything is fine. No, some people will just won't like to continue with the conversation and they'll say, yeah, it's good. And some people will say, no, it's not at all good. Yeah, this is bad. I am not able to do it. I actually heard all these things about Practo. So one of the doctors, he actually went ahead and said a lot of things about Practo. This is not there. I am not able to edit things. This bad, that bad. So you will get so much things to work on that probably in the next 1 month you will be busy creating another stuff which is similar to Practo but more user friendly.
Amazing. Thank you so much, sir.
Anything else? If not, I think we are pretty good to go. We are on time. Okay. Thank you guys. I think if this is fine, then over to you, Abhishek and Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sayantan. I think it was an amazing session. All of them actually had. I think the questions were also really amazing that came up
There's a
on
question.
how to actually apply these principles. Because what happens is many times we hear a lot of content, but how to apply is something where we actually need to start getting into hands-on, like practical application. So it's said, right, that knowledge is something very good, but knowledge turns into wisdom when you start applying it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that's how. And in wisdom it comes also with experience, because you tend to do something but you do some mistake, and then you understand, okay, this is not the way, or you try to change your methodology. So that is always a helpful parameter for everybody to work. So on behalf of Think Young and Mice Labs, I would like to thank you a lot for sharing this amazing insights about ideation and prototyping, especially the thing which I see on the screen. It's an important takeaway for all the participants, the 6x6 matrix, because there are many parameters that we need to address. And I think this is something that actually covers everything what a prototype actually needs. So thank you, Sayantan, for sharing your valuable insights and time. And thank you, dear participants, for coming and attending this session.
Thanks to all. Okay. Bye bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you so much.